So let's, first of all, this is what we're going to do. We're going to watch the report from 3 News. Actually, no, maybe we won't do it that way. Maybe we'll play the actual 5-minute stand-up. So we've got the full 5 minutes of Benjiman Doyle delivering his thoughts. And remember what everyone said. All he needs to do is come in front of the media and answer the questions. That's all he needs to do. So, Chewie, I'm assuming that means from this evening onwards, there's no more criticism of him online because he's done all he needed to do. You know, that's what we were being told. All he needed to do was come and answer some questions. And he's done that. So I'm assuming, I haven't looked, but I'm assuming all of that stuff has gone away. That's what I'm assuming, at least anyway. So let's show, it's a full 5 minutes, and unlike our regular kind of ludicrousness, we probably won't jump in and out of this too often because it's just Benjiman making his statement, and then we'll go into the 3 News story. And the reason I want to do the 3 News story instead of the 1 News tonight is the 3 News story had more perspective from Jenna Lynch. The 1 News story had more kind of quotes from him doing his stand-up. So 1 News is more relevant to this. And then there's one thing, and I don't think it showed in either of the news stories, because I watched the full press conference. They didn't talk about the blue swirl in either. Oh yeah, I've got to get, okay. They, them. Gotcha. They didn't talk about the blue swirl in either of the stories. So I've gone and found there was a blue swirl question in the stand-up. So we've got that as well. So the first thing we'll do is we'll listen to Ben's statement, which is about 5 minutes to the media, so we're all going to get on the same page.
Tēnā anō koutou katoa. I'm proud to be supported by my Green Party colleagues and leaders in the Rainbow community, Kevin, Clive and Tabby. I knew coming to Parliament that I would face prejudice and homophobia. I knew that people would not like the way I dress or speak or the causes that I advocate for. I knew that I would be under scrutiny, as is appropriate for every single person that has the privilege of this position. But I could never imagine or prepare myself to be attacked in such a baseless, personal, and violent way. That my life and that of my child would be threatened. That poisonous, transphobic hate and imported culture wars would be levelled against me and my community, not just by extremists online, but by individuals who hold the highest level of authority in this institution. I am here to bring my full self into Parliament and to represent my communities in the most authentic way possible. This is why when I was advised by the party to delete the page before coming to Parliament, I chose not to.
That was a question that was quite heavily delved into in the Q&A afterwards. Mm-hmm. You know, if they suggested, obviously it wasn't a criteria, if they suggested for it to be removed, how come you didn't remove it? And the response from Ben was basically, it's not being used right now, and I'm not going to delete myself from who I am authentically. So
that was one of the things that I said when we were discussing it, right? Is like, yes, it was probably politically naive to not sanitize your online persona. But then again, part of me is like, why the fuck should someone have to do that?
Yeah. But equally to that, and this, I'm not saying this is fair, I'm just being a realist here. If you don't do that, then there might be some extra icky consequences. Yeah. I'm not saying to the standard of this. You know what I thought as well? I thought about this as I was watching. I thought, what's wrong with answering a question? You know what? This is me talking now, in case, because if I say me or he, I'm talking about myself. You know what? I said and acted in a way before I was a politician that's not appropriate for a politician. But guess what? That was then. And since then, I've changed my position. You know, like when a lot of us were 18, 19, 20, I'm sure we acted in a way around a drinking culture that wouldn't be necessarily appropriate as a parent. You know what I mean? Like, what's
Yeah,
wrong
yeah.
with going, that was then, and I'll tell you, yeah, I spoke in a certain way, I acted a certain way, and I don't do that anymore because in this position that's not appropriate. Back then when I was a student, it was accepted and appropriate, you know. So I don't think there's a middle ground where you don't have to go, this is still who I am, because we change. You know, we change. I'm not saying that as an excuse, like, you know, Russell Brand's going through something at the moment where he's talking about how he used to be a bad boy because of various charges that have just been laid against him.
He's
I'm not
still a
going to
bad
that,
boy.
yeah, I'm not going to that extreme, but what I'm saying is, yeah, I did speak and act in a certain way, but now I'm in a position where speaking like that is no longer appropriate, so I don't. So, you know, it's a bit like we always used to say, you know, how would you act if you had if you had an interaction with the Queen? You know, well, king now, but you'd act and speak in a very different way than if you were doing it to your best mate who was a bartender. You can change, you can be different in different places, and that's how we all work. To your boss versus to your best mate, to your wife versus to your child. You know, I don't think I think we can all also go, we are different in different places. In my private life and my social life, I'm pretty cheeky. I use certain words and language. Well, you see all of us in this show, but you know, I'm thinking if I was an MP sort of thing, and in my business life, that's not appropriate to act like that. So I don't. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought about that today. Right, let's keep going.
I can admit that I was politically naive, and we have paid a huge price for that naivety. None of this means I deserve the barrage of abuse and vitriol I have experienced. I have been fielding a significant number of threats to my life and the safety of my child and family, some of which have been so graphic and disturbing that I have been advised not to leave my house or appear in public due to real concerns for my safety.
I think that's an important part as well, because, you know, the perspective on Twitter and various places was, well, why has Benjiman run away and hidden? It sounds like, and I was thinking this again before I saw this, it sounds like that Ben didn't have a choice in that, because obviously you follow the advice of the experts, the security people, and they've told Ben to just go and stay at home for a while. Whereas the internet sees that as well, he's running away. They're running away. Sorry. Ben's running away. Ben should come back immediately and explain it to all of us so we can have our thoughts and feelings satiated. So I think it's important to think about the process and how it happens. And if parliamentary services or if the security at Parliament have said, Ben, you should go home for a while, then that's what you do. And that's what it sounds like he's saying happened. They were saying. Might have done it again then.
These attacks I've faced have been baseless and cruel. Queer people are not a danger to children. This is an outdated and homophobic lie. I have been targeted due to both my identity as a queer and non-binary parent and my public platform as an outspoken member of Parliament. In particular, images of my child from my private Instagram account have been taken without permission, removed from their original context, and shared online in misleading and manipulative ways. Context is key, and something that has been deliberately ignored and twisted by some incredibly bad faith actors looking for an excuse to punch down on someone who represents something they don't agree with. The post at the center of these baseless attacks include 10 images from a range of activities in my life, with a pop culture pun in the caption. Bussy galore is an in-joke and a nickname. The translation here is me at large living my best life. Referring to myself in this way on Instagram is an expression of my queer identity, and it acts as a persona, much like a drag performer or a comedian might use. The caption, which references me, is an example of the way marginalised communities often reclaim or subvert language in order to exist unapologetically.
So Ben's just made it very clear. Bussy on Instagram was talking about themselves. As you were saying, Chewie, Ben's just confirmed there was 10 photos to that one caption. Now, again, those out there who have been looking for blood, come and answer the question and explain it if there's no problems. He has. Now what? So do we expect a certain pile of melting pancake batter tomorrow morning to go, oh, well, Ben has explained it all. It's all fine now.
Pat might have something about that. Let's finish the clip.
Okay. Is it anything to do with Reese Williams?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Because I've got something about that as well. I'm just wondering if you're going to usurp my little thing. But whatever.
No, I got secrets.
All right.
I recognise that bussy is not a term all rainbow people use or like, but it is one that is commonly understood and appreciated by my friends and community. For me, this term is wordplay and represents the combination of my masculine and feminine qualities as a non-binary person, someone whose gender doesn't fit into a strict category. It is also a satirical in-joke referencing pop music, drag culture, Bond novels, and 1960s cinema, made about myself with people who know me in mind. The vast majority of New Zealanders will not tolerate violent and malicious rhetoric in our country. They will not accept toxic conspiracies which attempt to bully and threaten queer people out of public life. I refuse to be disappeared by hate. We have a choice as members of Parliament to reject this imported culture war of hate and division. We can and must do better than this, because that is what the people of Aotearoa deserve.
So there you go. Thanks to stuff.co.nz for all of that. Now, I've got more to play, Chewie. Like there's the news item and there's the question about the swirl, the blue swirl. But do you want to drop something now, or?
Yeah, look, I got two things. One's a comment on that press conference.
Mm-hmm.
They hit every note, every question, I'm just asking questions. They explained it to people that were not familiar with aspects of who they are and the community that they're part of and all of that sort of thing. That was pitch perfect. Hats off. You mentioned the BHN nemesis. You're not going to like this, Pat. I'm just going to say, you're not going to.
Well, I have to tell you something else. I don't know what you know, but there's a story already tonight on the platform about Reese. Is it Reese Williams?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the right name? So
Reese Witherspoon is the mastermind behind all of this.
Yeah.
So let's hear from Sean Oliver Plunkett. I will say this for Benjiman Doyle. They have displayed a level of bravery and courage rarely seen in politics. Agree with them or not, they have put a stake in the ground.
I've got. Let's bookshelf that for a bit, because there may be a reason why Sean Plunkett is coming out trying to put balance in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Well, I'm taking this at face value at the moment, and I have to say, apart from the fact of not getting the pronouns right, it's difficult for Sean. He's old, stuck in his ways, whatever. On its face value, I go, hats off. That's a good comment from someone that I would not have expected it from. If
I
he's since
I
stood on his own
agree.
dick, I
No,
also
I, I did,
100% understand that.
let's just say this. I don't want to bury the lead. I'm keeping my powder dry because I want to finish this story first. But Sean Plunkett and his minions got up to something today around Reese Williams, and I just wonder if you put the two things together, that feels a little more disingenuous than maybe we would think normally about Sean Plunkett. So just bookmark that. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
Let's have a look at the story of 3 News. Now, this is going to have some repetition to it because there is going to be some clips from the stand-up, but this is more about the toing and froing, and this shows more of the conversation and the questions from the journalists afterwards. I think it gives us a good sort of mix. So, you stole my thing, didn't you? There we go. So 3 News story tonight. Let's go.
Flagged by members of the Rainbow community for support and choosing the Rainbow Room to make a return.
Tēnā anō koutou katoa.
Benjiman Doyle is back in the Parliament.
I am here to bring my full self.
Doyle, who uses the pronouns they, them, had been absent in the wake of a social storm over their old Instagram account, Bible Belt Bussy.
Do you believe you've done anything wrong, Benjamin?
No, I don't.
Bussy is a term used by some in the queer community. It's a combination of the words boy and pussy.
Context is key.
Today, Doyle fronting up to explain what bussy means to them.
For me, this term is wordplay and represents the combination of my masculine and feminine qualities as a non-binary person.
One of the posts on Doyle's page included the caption "Bussy Galore" under a series of photos, one of which featured their child. We've chosen not to show it to protect the privacy of the child.
Bussy Galore is an in-joke and a nickname. The translation here is me at large living my best life.
The photos had been posted across X along with inflammatory insinuations Doyle's child was in danger.
These attacks I've faced have been baseless and cruel. Queer people are not a danger to children.
The Deputy Prime Minister amplified that online chatter, even at some point raising the prospect of a police investigation.
What does Bussy Galore mean? What does it mean with all those photographs? Why have the 52 posts been taken down? Have you seen them?
The account, once public, was switched to...
Just remember that as well for our future conversation. If people start deleting things, it's a sign of some kind of guilt and of nefarious actions. just keep that in your mind. If people start deleting things, there's nefarious. That's the only reason, right? It's bad. They've done something bad, so they delete them. That's what's been talked about all week.
Private when it became clear to Doyle they would become an MP following Darlene Tana's departure. A number of posts on the page were deleted too.
Do you believe there was anything problematic about any of the posts that you made on your social media, and why have you deleted so many of them?
In the context of that old account, my personal account, and the posts that you're talking about, they were made in reference to me, about me and my life, and they have been taken wildly out of context and manipulated.
They had already been advised to delete the page when they became a candidate.
When I was advised by the party to delete the page before coming to Parliament, I chose not to. I can admit that I was politically naive.
Doyle says threats have been made to their life and their family. 3 News understands police are investigating at least one threat.
I have been fielding a significant number of threats to my life and the safety of my child and family, some of which have been so graphic and disturbing that I had been advised not to leave my house or appear in public.
There were calls for Doyle to go, the Green MP getting emotional, explaining why they're choosing to stay.
Because this is really important, this fight that we're having right now. If I were to step down and to move away from this space, our community would lose a voice, and we don't have much representation in here, especially non-binary takatapui people.
Choosing to fight rather than fall.
There you go. So that's the story. I've got one more clip to play, which is the conversation, the direct. So it's interesting that online there's been such a lot made about this blue squiggle. Neither of the news report, because it's a question in the thing. But so that's the last thing I've got to play. But do you want to say anything to that 3 News story, Chewie?
I'm already seeing a pivot now that they've had this press conference and that sort of thing. And now people are focusing on the fact that, I thought he was told to take it down and he didn't. What's going on with the Greens? Does no one listen to instructions?
It was interesting
it's
watching
a constant shifting.
Yeah, it was interesting watching the full
exhausting.
The full Q&A at the end. How often the journalists asked the same question, and even though Ben had already answered it, they asked it again. And I guess part of the reason they do that is like Mikey wants her voice and Jenna wants her voice, and to be part of their story. But it just must be frustrating for a politician to be like, you see them sometimes in the past go, asked and answered. I've already answered that. That's already been answered.
Yeah.
That's already, I've done that. But even after it gets explained, like when you give an answer, to then be asked it again or a variant of it, you're like, well, I've already. So it says one of two things: either they're asking again because they just want their own cut for their own show, or they're asking again because they sort of don't believe the answer, trying to push harder. It's strange.
I think like a big part of this was Winston just asking questions, or as I like to refer to it, jacking off. What does this mean? What does this mean? Have you asked them? I see this press conference and from the aspect of like he's talking to Winston. like settle down, Matua. This is what it all means. Gently educating. Yep, cool. Maybe I should have thought of this, but I didn't. And this is still important, and this is who I am, and all of that sort of stuff. There's a lot of people that are out there that don't get this. They don't get trans people. They don't get non-binary people. Don't make. Why can't a boy be a boy and a girl be a girl? And that's fine. It's fine to not get it. If it hasn't had any impact on your life, why would you? And there's already, like, I've seen comments in the chat from someone going, "Oh, look, I saw this press conference. I didn't get it. Why? Who is they? Is he they?" And I'm like, "Oh, is this deliberate, or is this someone just learning stuff?"
Maybe Winston thought it was like 7 people. Maybe he thought it was like a ring of people because the word "they" was used.
Yeah, and like there'll be people out there, and in the queer community, there are people in there as well that were like, "No, we were fine with the lesbians and the gays, and that was it." And everybody that came after that is wrong as well. Everybody's capable of doing it. But what I see in that story is a pretty good primer and a pretty good rundown of what all of this means. Nothing is being concealed from the sounds of it. And that's it. And I believe that there's been an offer for Benjiman to sit down with Winston Peters, which has been declined.
Yeah, well, I heard Ben say that we should meet up, sort of thing. But I think Winston was asked that, if not in the 3 article we just watched, then probably on 1, and seemed to be like, "Meh." But yeah, okay. Let's have a look now, because it seems strange to me that the media is doing this, the news media is asking all these questions, but the one they didn't publicize was one of these biggest conspiracy theories. It's the blue swirl. That's the confirmation. The blue swirl.
Yeah.
So he did get asked. They did get asked that in the stand-up, and I think that it's appropriate for us to give their response to it.
Concerns that have been raised online with you, just so you can address them outright. There have been some concerns raised about the use of the spiral emoji. Are you aware of the connotations of that online and its links to child sexual harm?
In Aotearoa, we are surrounded by Māori motifs such as the koru. I don't know a single person who would look at a spiral in this country earnestly and think anything as malicious as that. I was not aware of that conspiracy, and I would only use that, as most people would, as a reference to a koru in Aotearoa.
You were asked by the party.
You mentioned at the beginning that the party advised you to remove.
And they go back to the same questions after questions after questions after questions after questions. And can I just say what I said earlier, or late last week? Do you really think conspiracy theorists, or maybe it's because you're that dumb that you would do this. Remember we talked about when people think that you're a shill and you'd sell out for money. What it's actually saying is, well, if I got offered a big chunk of money, I'd sell out, so you must do it as well. Maybe they're just so stupid, but if you think about what would have to happen for someone to use that swirl as an identifiable character, that means they'd have to be okay with the FBI hunting for it online for the past 20 years to identify people who are attracted to minors. Do you think anyone is really going to use that symbol in this day and age who is in that community, if that's the right word to use, in that cesspool of people who would look to do that kind of horrific crime when they already know that it's been identified as a public symbol and the FBI are looking for it? It just makes no sense whatsoever.
So here's my view on this. Over the past decade, I've sometimes paddled in some of the vilest parts of the internet. I've sort of referenced this before. And sort of seen a lot of the conspiracies about pedophiles and QAnon and all of this sort of stuff. This is, hand on heart, the first time that I've seen this squiggle emoji or whatever used in reference to this.
But that's exactly the same as every other person in New Zealand who's also already now an expert on it, showing what exactly it means. This is the first time they'd seen it as well. But they're experts. Within 60 minutes of knowing it, they've got all the information.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange. Like it's such a beat up. And I think it's really interesting that you would have seen the study that was published by the Otago University today.
Women and PTSD from female
just the level of vitriol that has come from the public towards MPs has ramped up markedly over the years, and just that it's constant. And okay, that study did focus very much on women in Parliament, but I think it like, I'm sure if you went through everybody, and it would certainly start with brown women, minority groups, people that don't fit in a gender box, people who are obviously a part of a minority community and that sort of thing, going right up to the tippy top of the straight white male who doesn't get the same level of vitriol that these people do. I just want to say, and I would love to get people on both sides together on this sort of thing. We are soaking in politics all the time. We're completely invested in this. I've been fucked off with the other side. That makes me really, really mad with the mean policies and dumb policies, all of this sort of race baiting, queer baiting, all of this stuff. It drives me fucking crazy. I have never ever thought, you know what'll fix this? I'm going to send Winston Peters a death threat. I'm going to tell Luxon that I'm going to fucking rape him in front of his family. Struth. I'm going to leave. Look, with Struth, right? Well, this is what these women and left MPs and all of this sort of stuff are getting. Not leaving dead animals on their electorate doorsteps. This is where we're at. Left and right, play the objective, play the policy. You know, I can be as guilty as others of sometimes falling into gendered insults, and I honestly try to avoid it. I think Nicola Willis, as an example, is a terrible finance minister because of the policies and decisions that she's made. I don't think it has anything to do with her genitals. So what the fuck is going on? Like, I know we've got some people on the other side of the conversation in the chat today.
Hey, crunchies,
like
crunchies.
Our crunchy croutons, the people that break up the texture of the delicious soup that is the BHN community. Surely we can get some consensus here. Surely we can see what this Benjiman Doyle thing is on its value. It was created by some fringe operators. It was passed around and some of the shitty parts of the internet, and it has made it all the way to the wrinkled, wizened claws of our deputy prime minister, and he decided to run with that.
Mm.
Isn't that fucked? It's nothing against Benjamin's policies or the bills that he's putting forward or his portfolio. It's nothing about how the Green Party operate. Someone went through someone's personal Instagram account to create this. And if they really, really believe the child is in danger, like if you discovered that, like if I went right now, picked a random National Party backbencher, went through all of their social media to find a photo that I could spin, and I go to my online supporters and I spin that story and build a conspiracy out of it, but it's about the children. If you really believe that a child was in danger, wouldn't you go straight to the fucking police?